Ever wonder how faith plays into grief and loss?
Hmm.
Like, does it help? Hurt?
Big questions.
Yeah. And that's what today's deep dive is all about.
I like it.
We're taking a look at this episode of the Rhythms of Grace podcast.
Yep.
It's called Healing from Human Losses.
Catchy.
Yeah. And they make this really bold statement
Oh.
that death doesn't have a sting.
For believers, right?
Right.
That's a powerful idea. It suggests that because of Jesus' death and resurrection, believers can view death very differently than maybe someone who doesn't have that belief system.
So they're not afraid of death.
Not exactly. I think it's more like they have this hope for an afterlife.
And that changes everything.
Right.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've felt that total devastation, that just emptiness when I've lost someone close.
Yeah.
Like a piece of me is gone forever.
Forever loss.
Yeah. Have you ever felt that way?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, who hasn't? But this podcast episode, it really delves into the words of Paul, the Apostle Paul from the Bible, specifically 1 Corinthians 15.
Okay.
And he's basically saying there that for those who believe death isn't an ending, it's more like a transformation, a new beginning.
A new beginning. Wow. It makes me think of that powerful verse.
Which one?
O death, where is thy sting?
Ah, yes.
So powerful. Gives me chills just thinking about it.
That line is all about victory over death.
Okay.
It comes from the idea that Christ's resurrection conquers death.
So for believers,
Yeah,
death is more like a transition.
exactly, not an ending.
That is comforting.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to ask, how does that square with the pain of losing someone?
Oh, yeah.
The grief, the hurt.
Well, this is interesting because the podcast actually acknowledges that.
Okay.
It says that grief is a natural human response,
Okay.
even for people of faith.
So it's not like they're just numb to it.
No, not at all. In fact, the author actually shares a personal story
Oh, wow.
about crying when their mother passed away.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
So it's not about denying those feelings, but about holding on to hope, even when you're hurting.
Exactly. The podcast makes this distinction between the kinds of hope we have.
Okay.
There's fleeting hope, like the hope we place in human kindness.
Which can be let down, yeah.
Exactly. But then there's this other kind of hope that they talk about.
The kind that's tied to faith.
Right. It's valid, assured, and everlasting are the words they use.
Interesting. When I'm going through tough times personally, I find hope in the people I love,
Oh, yeah.
my support network. They're like a warm blanket on a cold day.
That's a beautiful image. What about you? What gives you hope?
Music, honestly.
Ah, a fellow artist.
Something about creating,
Yeah.
or even just listening, it lifts me up.
That makes sense. And this source actually connects this idea of hope to the power to overcome challenges.
Okay.
It suggests that belief allows individuals to kind of shake off the sting of death.
Like how Paul shook off that viper in Acts.
Exactly. Like it just didn't affect him. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, that metaphor about serpents and scorpions, I always found that so vivid.
Powerful. Right. But think about it. How does that apply to us in everyday life?
That's a good question.
Right. Because it's not like we're literally treading on dangerous creatures, but we all face challenges.
We do, yeah.
Setbacks. Disappointments.
Like a tough day at work.
Exactly. Or maybe a personal struggle you're going through.
Oh, yeah.
And this idea of treading on serpents and scorpions, it's about facing those things head on, not letting them defeat us.
So resilience, basically.
Exactly. That ability to keep going even when things are tough.
Okay, I see that. So connecting this back to the overall message of the podcast episode,
Yes.
what do you think the main takeaway is
It's a call to heal.
from grief?
Yeah, from the sting of death, and to embrace the hope that faith offers.
To remember that we're not defined by our losses.
Right. But by this promise of something more.
Life after death.
Exactly.
It's a call to action, to move forward even when it hurts.
And to remember that we're not alone in our grief.
Powerful stuff. So in a nutshell, this deep dive has been all about looking at death and grief through a Christian lens.
Right.